Hey everyone, Alex here for episode number 10, where we will be discussing Robert Parish, he will be defended by Ray, who again is the only one to have him on his list. With help, I'm sure, with from Wade as usual. So let's go over Parish's career so Wade and Ray can make the case.
Yeah.
The 7'1", 230-pound center who played for the Golden State Warriors, Boston Celtics, Charlotte Hornets, and Chicago Bulls, winning 4 titles, 3 with the Celtics and 1 with the Bulls. He is a 0-time MVP, 9-time All-Star, and 2-time All-NBA, and a Hall of Famer, with career numbers of 14, 9, and 1 on 53% shooting. So, Ray, break it down for us.
All right. I feel like I'm going to be hitting the firing squad here in about 5 seconds, but we'll see what happens. I think he's a multi-talented big man. Good hook shot, jump shot, strong dunker. He could run the break. He had a nice post-up spin move. He was a nice, defender. Let's see. That you hated. Well, yeah, he was a good defender. He was pretty much a total package for a center. I never really got to see him play because I'm not, in that era. But from the video that I've seen, I thought he was really pretty good. And then I keep hearing negativity from you guys.
The Lakers fans, by you guys.
Oh yeah.
We have live video of him playing at our house.
Oh okay. And let's see, he averaged nearly a double-double for his career. He put in pretty good work for the Celtics. He's 8th in rebounds, 85th in steals, 10th in blocks, 27th in points. He's a Hall of Famer, like you said, 4-time champ, 9-time All-Star. Pretty impressive stats for a center. So, go ahead.
Well, let's break up the Lakers. One of you two can go, and then one of Wade and I will go.
Dad, I say you go first since you watched him.
Okay. Well, Robert Parish was a good center. I'm a Laker fan. I watched him play against the Lakers a bunch. And Parish was good. The 4 championships, I think you got to give Larry credit for more of the 3 than Robert, though Robert did do his part. The other championship was the Michael at the end when he's on the bench, and that one I'm not so sure about. For me, rebounding wasn't bad, like 9. It's the points that really knocked him off my list. He was down pretty far on the points. I think it was like 14-5. Now I know he did make pretty high on the all-time list, but Robert was also, and still is, the all-time leader in games played. I think that contributes quite a bit to how high he is on both the lists. Because if you look at his average rebounds and points, they're not nearly that high. Again, I agree with Ray. He was a pretty decent defender. I saw times where he lit the Lakers up, but there were also times where the Lakers lit him up. I don't really have anything against Parish. He was definitely one of the players I considered for my top 10 centers. He just didn't make the list.
And I think we're looking at another guy that's in that term I discussed earlier with Mutombo, the longevity list. So,
Well, I think he's on top of the longevity.
Yeah,
list.
he is the mountain.
Yeah.
He's the definition of longevity.
And I do believe his career numbers, again, if he stopped playing 4 years earlier, when his last few years, he's just a 12th man on a bench who gets in and mop-up duty and stuff, and it's just, averaging 2 or 3 points a game and just completely pulling his averages down. If he would have left the league a few years earlier, his career numbers probably looked better. Kind of like what we talked about with Mutombo earlier. His longevity hurt his career numbers as far as per game.
Oh, yeah.
I have a curious question for Uncle Doug. We hit on Kevin McHale in an earlier episode, and you said you weren't sure he was the number 2. Mm-hmm. Do you think Parish was the number 2?
Some years it might have been Parish. I know Larry was number 1.
Yeah. No one's.
Okay. And I think they had different guys that stepped up and were the number 2. Mm-hmm. At times it was McHale. At times it was Parish. Parish had some pretty good games. The one series, Cornbread Maxwell was the MVP.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what 81?
Yeah, and you got DJ was, to me, very underrated. I thought DJ was a pretty doggone good guard. I thought a lot more of him than I did.
Didn't he put up
Danny Ainge.
really great stats and win a championship before the Lakers? Or not? I'm sorry, the Celtics.
With Seattle. Yeah,
Yeah.
He won a
Yeah.
championship
And
with
He was
Seattle.
good, too.
He came and just kind of plugged into the Celtics and
Yeah.
did his role. Yeah.
So I really, the 2-3 on the Celtics, in my opinion at least, was kind of fluid. They had guys that floated in and out of those spots.
By the way, did you say Cornbread Maxwell?
Yeah.
Was that his nickname?
Cedric, yeah.
I know.
Cedric
I know who
Cornbread,
Cedric
yeah.
Maxwell is, and I assume that's who you meant. But I never
Oh
heard
yeah,
Cornbread.
that's what they called him. They called him Cornbread.
All right, well, I learned
Why?
something
I'm
new.
very curious.
I think it had
why.
something to do with his grandmother and he loved her cornbread or something like that. I've heard some story about it, but
Oh, okay.
yeah, but that's what they called him. And he had a fantastic series. I think it was maybe the first Celtic title with Larry.
Yeah. Yep.
And then he moved on. I don't know if he and the coach didn't get along.
I know this story. Cedric Maxwell came out, had a nice run, 81, won Finals MVP. He had a great Finals.
Oh yeah.
And I believe it was the 82 season. He got hurt and missed at least majority, if not all, of the season. And then when he came back and finally got healthy, he lost most of his playing time to McHale, and he got upset about it, and they ended up trading him.
I knew he just kind of disappeared.
Yeah, I'm not even 100% sure where they traded him to be honest.
Notice ever since we hit on that on one episode. I don't remember what it was.
It was
Was it worthy?
It was worthy.
Yeah, it was worthy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
because I said something about playing third fiddle, and Uncle Doug goes, "Remember that we talked about McHale."
That's right. So I really wanted to ask that ever since then about who you thought was second fiddle for the Celtics behind Bird. But okay.
All right, what you got, Drew?
Well, I'm just asking, did Robert Parish benefit from being on a good team? Yes. What were his numbers like in the Words? I haven't looked at that myself, but is anyone else? Like, what kind of player was he?
They look similar to his career numbers. I was just looking at it before we.
Yeah,
did
they're
this.
pretty solid. Yeah,
I just wasn't sure. I was trying to figure out, like
17 and 10.
did they
17 and 12. I mean, the first year with the Warriors were pretty crap. It was 9-1 and 7.
Well, I
But
mean,
then-
I don't expect them to be like.
But then after that, it was double.
He
Mid-teens
he
and
got
10 rebounds.
they got rid of him because he had off court issues and effort issues, which
Wasn't he a trivia question
I'm
for
saying
something?
he's
Yes.
the one that got weed shipped to his house.
but that was
Yeah.
in the 90s, not in the 70s.
That's after when he doesn't care anymore after he won championships. It's like,
Yeah,
The 70s preferred Coke.
yeah.
I'm not saying Parrish did, but I'm just saying during the 70s there was a lot of that in the NBA.
they talk about. I've read about it and heard people talk about it, like Bill Simmons, where the reason they were able to trade, I think it was like Joe Barry Carroll for Robert Parish, was because he would much rather spend time smoking than practicing, and was missing time and having struggles with that stuff.
They even referenced stuff like that in The Last Dance about Michael Jordan, about when he first comes to the league in the 80s, and everyone on the team they're crap, and they're all doing coke and smoking in the in the hotel rooms, and so I don't think that was really rare back then. It was, yeah.
Did we interrupt you, Drew? Do you get?
No, that's all I wanted to know.
Oh, okay.
That's all I wanted.
All right, well, I'll go over what I got about Parrish. Chief was good at all sorts of things. He was a good post scorer. He had a good baseline jumper. He was a good on-ball defender, a good shot blocker, a good rebounder, good teammate. The problem is when we're making a list of top 50 players, especially top 10 centers, a stacked position, we're looking at elite players and all-time greats. And I don't believe Parrish is any of those things. The things that Chief was great at were longevity, 21 years in the league, consistency, because he was hella consistent for a long time, and he showed up in big games. It seems like every time you look at a big game in Celtics box score, Parish had 20 rebounds. And although those things are useful and those things are not anything to shake a stick at, I don't think those things make you an all-time great. The other things about Chief is Chief never wanted to be the man. He liked being in the background. And he was very upfront about that. But it also hurt his career numbers. When you are accepting of a lesser role, even though maybe you could have had a bigger role, that hurts your numbers. Not to say that that didn't help him win 3 championships with the Celtics. Because if he would have thrown fit about touches, maybe they would have shipped him off, or maybe their chemistry wouldn't have worked. So I'll give him that. I don't really count the 4th title with the Bulls. He was a deep bench guy that never played, but he was on the team. I just touched on his issues in Golden State. I kind of talked about that, but that's on here for me. And but I will say this: I believe that no matter where you rate Robert Parish on your centers list, whether it's 5th, whether it's 10th, whether it's 15th or 20th, you need to bump him up a couple spots just simply for the fact he punched Bill Laimbeer in the face.
Truth.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
Larry Bird also beat the shit out of Billy Mayer.
I saw a video of that the other day. Larry wasn't taking no crap.
No, he rolled over and socked that son of a bitch right in the face.
So that's my big thing, Ray. I think Parrish is a good player. He's obviously a Hall of Famer. I think he was solid and good at almost everything. He just had no elite skill, no thing he excelled at greatly, and I think that holds him back slightly. It's not like he was buried deep on my centers list. I'm not 100% sure where I had him. I think I told you last week I had Mutombo 11. Parrish was probably 12 or 13, somewhere in there. I'm not 100% sure. But he had a solid career, won championships. I just felt he was the third fiddle on these teams and fell a little short of making my list, especially on a stacked center position like I talked about earlier.
All right, let me ask you this one. How do you have him compared to Bosch?
What do you mean?
Just a straight up comparison. How do you like? You got
I would say Robert Parish is better all time than Chris Bosh.
Okay. All right. I'm just kind of curious because I kind of compared the stats while you were talking, and looked like Robert had a little bit better overall.
Well, I know we talked about this in the Quiet episode, but I can't take Chris Bosh off the power forward list to put Robert Parish on.
No,
the
I mean
center
that's
list.
fine, but I mean you were talking about third fiddles there for a second, and I mean compared to Miami's third fiddle to possibly Celtics third fiddle. I mean there's a.
I think as far as third fiddles go, I think Parish is one of the best, if not the best all time statistically. I think he is better than Kevin Love and Chris Bosh. I think he's better than James Worthy statistically. I'm trying to think of some more in my head, to be honest with you. But I don't know.
Thompson.
I mean, statistically he's better than Klay Thompson. I mean, Klay Thompson's got a long way to go in his career. Hopefully, as long keeps getting hurt right now, but yeah. I think he's definitely one of the top. Somebody may disagree with me on a couple of those guys, but I think his career is better than all of those guys so far, at least.
And I mean, even without being on the Celtics, as we look at the first 3 years of Golden State, I mean, he was still doing fairly well by himself. So I mean, did it benefit him going to Celtics? Yeah, but I mean, he was still doing his thing before that. So.
I mean, yeah, but is 17 and 10 gonna do this? I mean, 17 and 10 is nothing to shake a stick at. I'm not saying it's terrible or bad. I'm just saying, yeah, he was doing 17 and 10, but is that where we're going to get him here?
I mean, somebody's got to play the post position. That's in that kind of era is kind of sucky for the center because you're kind of stuck down low. And that was your spot, and you can't really move. So you had to figure out a way to score down low, especially when you got shooters here and here, like Bird and McHale. So being that person right there, you kind of had to be kind of creative in what you're doing with your life down there.
Well, I don't disagree. There wasn't a ton of space down there because a lot of guys played down there. You know, your center and your power forward were down there on every possession. Not a lot of floor spacing. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I don't dislike Parish. I just don't think he made the cut for me for the reasons I said earlier. His longevity is, like I said, it hurt his per game stats, but it's actually pretty amazing. The amount of games and the longevity he played.
It's over 1,600 games.
Yeah, that's insane. We were talking about like Kawhi Leonard has 500. You know, like he'd have to play for 50 years to play 1,600 games.
Plays like 45, 50 games. And he still has less rebounds and points than my boy Paul.
Well, I mean, even Uncle Doug during the Kawhi episode pointed out that Dominique played a ton of games and he had right over 1,000. That's 600 less games than Parish, and it's not like Dominique's career was short.
Right. And so Parish played what, 21 years?
21 seasons.
Right, and so you figure at 82 games. I mean, he played a lot of games for a lot of years.
Here is his games per by year. 77, 82, 76, 72, 82, 80, 78, 80, 79, 81, 80, 74, 80, 79, 81, 79, 79, 74, 81, 74, and then 43 in his final season.
So, I mean, for most seasons, he played the majority of the year.
You're really looking at a guy that never had any major injuries.
Right, yeah.
I mean, or he played through every injury he received. Whatever it was, he was playing. Yeah. So,
who does everyone else have at 9 and 10 at center? I'm just curious.
Let me check.
I mean, me and Alex both have Reed and Howard.
I've got.
Is Parish your 10, Ray?
Let me check real fast.
I've got Patrick Ewing and George Mikan.
Ooh,
who we haven't talked about yet.
Mikan, yeah. I believe Ewing made all of our lists.
Yeah.
I have Patrick Ewing at 10 and George Mikan at 9.
Okay, so we're all working with the same handful of players. You got Howard and Reed, and then Mikan and Ewing, and swapping orders.
Well, we're the only ones to include Howard on our list.
Isn't that episode coming up next with the 2-on-3s?
I mean, it's coming up shortly. It's not next, but it's coming up shortly.
Next, but coming shortly, yeah.
So how do we think that Parish compares to all of our 10s and 9s? I mean, that's pretty much what we're comparing him to, right?
Right.
All of our 10s and 9s. So how do we think that works out? I mean, like with me and Alex, I mean, he obviously wins a lot more than Dwight. Dwight gets a lot more defensive awards.
Honestly, it surprised me that Parish has no all defensive teams.
Right, yeah.
None.
Well, something that really gets me is Howard has a higher peak, but I feel like Parish is a more valuable player for a 15-year period of time. Howard is like this 10-year monster, and then starts having off-the-court issues, gets traded nonstop,
Let me ask you this about Dwight, and I don't want to make this about Dwight, but how much of Dwight's slowing down is because the game passed him by? The game changed so drastically away from centers.
I think it was a combination of the era he plays in, and people absolutely hated him in the locker room for like 3 teams in a row.
Yeah, thanks, Kobe Bryant.
Yeah, so he and Kobe was a little too intense for Dwight.
Yeah.
And then, to be perfectly honest, Harden treated him like crap when he went to Houston.
Harden treats every teammate like crap, but nobody ever blames Harden for it. That's why I don't ever get that. Harden couldn't get along with any of his coaches. Harden couldn't get along with any superstar we sent there. Even his so-called best friend in Russell Westbrook, he ran him out of town.
Right. And I think that really hurt Dwight. You know, the whole trip to L.A., you know, had it worked out better between he and Kobe and he'd stayed there and they'd won titles together, might change his career trajectory completely. But then when he ends up at Houston and then Harden and D'Antoni do their whole thing, and
after Houston, it goes downhill quick.
Right.
He has a couple more good stat years, but people talk crap about him in the locker room. They were said that over half the team asked for him to get traded from the Atlanta Hawks. He was absolutely despised by the Atlanta Hawks.
But you know,
Same
last
thing
year
in Charlotte,
when he came to L.A., he was a good teammate, I think.
Because he
I think
accepted
he
being a backup.
Right. He fit in
Yeah.
with the team. He knew what his role was. And at the beginning of the season, he was playing behind JaVale McGee. And by the end of the year, by the playoffs, he was playing way more.
What I don't get is the big thing with me is you hear all this bad stuff about Dwight, but no one ever really gives you a solid reason. It's a lot of crap like, oh, he has too much fun in the locker room. Okay.
He's just a big kid. He was having a
No,
good time.
that-
Wasn't
that's
nothing
my
wrong with
thing.
That
that.
always confused
Is
me.
Kobe bashed him repeatedly in the media even. It wasn't like he was bashing him in the locker room when none of us could hear about it. He was repeatedly bashing him in the media and just tore his reputation down. And yes, most of it had to do with, well, he smiles too much and he has too much fun and he's not serious enough. Well, maybe that's true, and maybe there is a negative connotation to that. If you're smiling while you're losing, people might get a little irritated with that. I get it. I'm not an idiot. But not everybody is also Kobe and Michael, where you have to be the maddest guy on the court at all times and not have any fun with it.
Some people's natural reaction when you're losing or doing something is just to try and sit there and make it positive and just smile and go through. Doesn't mean they don't take it serious.
Because
That's a
here's
natural reaction to some people. They feel awkward, so they're just kind of like, eh.
here's the other thing with that season in LA is he was coming off a major back surgery.
He wasn't supposed to play for part of it.
Right. And he led the NBA in rebounds.
Yeah.
It's not like he went there and was garbage. And I do believe there was 3 other Hall of Famers on that team, and they lost in the first round of the playoffs. And it got blamed on Dwight Howard.
Steve Nash was also trash and didn't play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Steve
Steve
Nash was.
Nash.
Yeah, that was.
He barely played.
worthless.
He barely played at all.
No, he
And
didn't.
when he did play, he was a shell of himself because
Right,
he had
yeah.
such severe
That was
he had
worthless.
such severe back injuries.
Right.
And Kobe was also not Kobe. He was still very good.
That whole situation
That
was,
was right
bad
before he tore
because
his
even
Achilles.
Powell was pouting because they wanted them to. They were trying to get him to stretch the floor, and he didn't want to. Like, it was a bad situation. I get it, but everybody acts like Dwight was the only problem on that team and why they lost,
Yeah.
and it's just not true.
I mean, Kobe did run off Shaq, like the
Well-
greatest player of his generation.
Say Kobe
then-
was looking for Dwight to be Shaq, and then he was looking to think that with him and Dwight and Powell, they had it, and Dwight wasn't Shaq, and he was never going to be. He was a different player.
Well,
And Kobe, nobody other than Michael, probably nobody's more intense than Kobe.
I mean, we've seen all those videos of him in practice yelling and screaming and cussing out his teammates and all that stuff. And some guys it works with, some guys it motivates. We've seen guys come on ESPN and talk about, well, Kobe said this to me, and we're like, whoa, Kobe said that, but it motivated them and they played well. But we all know that's not the case with everybody. We all know it doesn't work with Wade. If you yell and scream at Wade, Wade doesn't play better.
I'm gonna fight you.
No, Wade just says F you and goes on.
Like that, some people just have different personalities. I'm not even trying to turn this into a bashing Kobe session. I just think Kobe ruined Dwight Howard's reputation, and he never fully recovered from it. And when he didn't make it work in Houston, and I don't think it was his fault, it just completely signed off on it.
Before we get, I feel like we got really off track there, but partially
We
my
did.
fault. But my point was just trying to compare him to people. And that's just the reputation of Dwight Howard. That's the reputation he got. And that was my only point. I don't agree with it. I like Dwight Howard. He's my number 9 center. But that I was just trying to compare that to Robert Parish, and then that's what I was saying. Me and Alex both have Willis Reed, who, like we said earlier, I think the last episode, he has 2 championships,
And an MVP.
two Finals MVPs and an MVP.
Yeah.
Yep.
Correct.
Yep.
So that's really his main standout points. But I mean, Parrish has 3 We're not counting the 4th one. 3 championships, but no Finals MVPs. So it's kind of a tricky game. And then I'm not going to dive into the George Mikan spot that you guys have. But
Yeah, well, and then you look at him compared to Patrick Ewing. Patrick, better rebounder, had more rebounds, had more points, more blocks, more steals, more assists. Patrick didn't have the titles.
But I guess what I'm saying, we just brought up titles. But was Patrick Ewing or Dwight Howard ever asked to be the 3rd best player on a championship team? No. They were asked to be the best player on a championship
Right.
team. And they did not accomplish that, although Dwight got close. Ewing got close
Right.
once too.
Ewing fought Jordan for a lot of years, actually. Ewing
He
was
did.
the best player on a team that was one of the biggest thorns in the greatest player ever's side. So that's a pretty big accomplishment in itself.
We haven't decided that yet, Wade.
Oh, I'm sorry. My greatest player ever side. And everyone... Okay, just keep going.
But so it is. It's a hard question, and it's a what if game. We kind of played that with the James Worthy episode. But if you would have asked Dwight or Ewing to fill Parrish's role in those Celtics teams, could they have done it? That's a personal question. I believe yes.
Oh yeah, I think they both could have.
I think
Especially Ewing. I think
especially-
Ewing is more talented than Robert Parrish. That's
Yeah.
just
Oh,
my
yeah,
personal
Patrick
opinion.
Yeah.
I think he's
have-
more talented.
I have Ewing. Yeah.
I have Ewing higher than you guys. I think I have Ewing at 7,
Okay.
I believe.
I don't know
I'd
about
have- I'd have
total
to look.
sinners, but I mean, I have Ewing at like 36 overall. I don't know about my overall sinners. He might be 6 or 7. I don't know. Somewhere in that
I
vicinity.
say Ewing's my last.
Maybe
center
8.
on my list.
He might be 8.
Yeah, I've got Parrish at 9, and then I got Ewing at 6.
Yeah, I've got Ewing at 9.
I was still kind of talking about Dwight and Willis Reed. I think Dwight can come in and do what Parrish did. Willis, I'm not sure, because again, we talk about the position change, the era change. I'm not. That's I think a little bigger argument. I think Dwight comes in and can do what Parrish does. But
What about Dwight's toughness, though, compared to Parrish?
Toughness as in what?
As in toughness.
Well, I mean, are you talking about like because he was able to play and like play through injuries? Or are you talking about like toughness as in like pushing guys around or what?
Yeah, like, taking punishment down in a post, giving punishment back. Could Dwight Howard step into the 80s realm and take that kind of punishment?
Well, as far as like just his body, I guess Dwight Howard's a physical specimen. I don't doubt that he could physically handle it or dish it out. And this is what I say about more modern big men, and I mean modern as in like 2000s on. There's a few of them, Dwight included. Shaq is also included in this. I even think Blake Griffin's included in this. They were treated differently in a negative way because they were big and muscular. Guys were able to do things to them that they weren't able to do to the rest of the league. You would see guys just hammer them over and over and over again, and do things to them that every other player in the league would get a flagrant for.
that was a giant thing with Shaq.
Yes,
Ginormous.
and it would just be common foul, go to the line, and but then if they ever lost their cool, we acted like they were jerks.
Yeah,
Or if they ever threw an elbow, they're like, "What is he doing? That's ridiculous." I'm like, "Well, that guy hit him in the face 4 times in the last 10 times down the court. That guy was just brought in the game a few minutes ago to use his 6 fouls and hammer on these guys."
I know we're talking about Dwight, but I think we can drive the point more home with Shaq. People went out of their way to halfway tackle Shaq to foul him, because if you didn't halfway tackle him, he would power through you, get fouled, and dunk on you, and then go to the line. And that kind of set, I think, the precedent. I can't say the word.
Precedent.
Yes, I'm sorry. And then that kind of led to things with Dwight, who was, again, this physical freak. Maybe not as strong as Shaq, but just in a different way, more of a physical freak. Where, I mean, he just got hammered, because that's how you stop someone that big and that athletic. Shaq was he was definitely athletic, but he was just so strong and so monster. And that led down to Dwight and, like you said, Blake Griffin, where you had to do something extremely drastic to stop them, or else they're just going to dunk on you. They're just that much bigger and stronger than you and more athletic than you.
So I guess to finish what I was trying to say there was just that I think if you allow Dwight to repeatedly retaliate, I think it works fine. I mean, he was able to do it now to maybe a lesser extent. It was obviously a more physical game in the 80s than it is now. But we just talked about how they gave them a little bit more leash with these guys. Well, I'm also saying Dwight would be able to retaliate, and I think that works all right.
Let's be honest, in the 80s, you can just... How do I word this? I mean, the bad boy Pistons played in the 80s. You could do whatever you wanted in the 80s. And someone as big and strong and athletic as Dwight, if you give him free reign to push and pull and grab and throw people, not very many people I don't think are way.
Well, I'll just say this. Maybe it's off, but it has Robert Parish listed at 230. Dwight Howard's 270. And he's 6'9", not 7'1". So how much bigger is Dwight Howard than Robert Parish?
I mean, yeah, he's a little bit heavier.
I think he'd handle it. That's just my personal opinion, though.
You say Dwight Howard's only 6'9"?
Yeah.
Well, that's the same.
6'9", 6'10".
That's about the same as what Willis Reed was. So Wade was talking about earlier how we don't know if Willis can do it. Well, he's the same height as Dwight.
I think Willis Reed is a power forward in almost every other era outside the 60s and 70s. Maybe today. I'm sorry.
I think Willis Reed could have done what Parrish did.
You think so?
Yeah.
I'm not saying he doesn't have the ability.
I think he was a better scorer than Parrish.
I don't know if he has.
I think he
length.
was a better scorer.
Does he have the length and the height though? That's a big deal.
He
Especially in the
had,
80s.
he had, well, I'm trying to think how to put this. He had a little bit of Charles Barkley in him. He knew how to use his butt, and he could make space. And Willis Reed was tough.
He got where he had to go with that body.
Yeah, and
I understand.
he played against bigger centers even then, and he did a pretty good job of holding his own.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I was really asking because I don't know.
I think maybe you would have seen Willis Reed play power forward, and you would have moved Kevin McHale to center, being the bigger player.
McHale was like a 7-footer, right?
I
Or
think he's
close
listed at
to it.
6'10", but I mean,
All
you
right,
can play center at 6'10".
Pretty close. Yeah.
I mean, but I'm just saying, like, maybe you would have moved McHale over to the 5, and Reed would have played the 4. But yeah, I think they could have played down low together. Were you going somewhere with that, Ray? I know I got long-winded there.
No, I just wanted to see your opinion.
Honestly, I think we're all kind of just splitting hairs on opinions of this or that. As far as I think Parrish is right up there with at least close to the top 10, if not in the top 10, depending on your opinion. So
well, Drew, since you know we bring this up all the time. You're much younger than most of us. What do you know about Parish? Like, what have you seen about Parish?
Well, what I've seen with me and my dad, like DVDs when the Lakers and Celtics play. Well, honestly, I know he's the center for the Celtics when I play. And I always honestly, I knew he could score because obviously he's getting guarded by Kareem. I know Kareem's a decent defense. So I know I think he's a lot better offense than when we were talking about Mutombo. He probably score a little bit more than what Mutombo was, but I don't know how good a defense he was because obviously I know Kareem. It's hard for me to compare this because Kareem was obviously the all-time scorer of all time. So I'm not saying he's terrible at defense because he couldn't guard Kareem because I couldn't either, and nobody could.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I like how you compared him to you.
I can guard him. I'll lock that hook shot down.
Wade, he would dunk on you. He would teabag you.
I'm 5'10", bro. Like a 26-inch vertical. I'd get up there.
He probably doesn't even need to jump the dunk.
Keep going.
But anyway, I think in longevity, I think that's helped him out a lot. But I think through all of it, he was not average, but he was good at everything through his whole career. He never went way up, but he never dropped off at all. I thought for all through his 21 years, he did his job, what he was asked to do. When he was with the Warriors, maybe he could have done a little bit more, but when he was with the Celtics, he showed up in big games. He did what he needed to do to win, and he's definitely a big part of their 3 titles there. Even when Bill Walton came to the Celtics, Parrish still played a lot, I thought.
Well, I mean, Walton came off the bench. Parrish started.
Yeah. So obviously, Parrish was still good. Like I said, all the way through all 21 years.
I think that may be Parrish's most redeeming quality is his consistency. You rarely ever see, well, you definitely don't see a season, but I mean, I don't even think you see really games where Parish went out there and laid an egg. He may have had a bad shooting night, but he was still going to go grab you your 12 boards and, hustle and play defense and all those things. I mean, there's so many players we could talk about over the years that, well, I'm playing bad offensively, so my game's just shot.
Yeah.
And that's not who Parish was. He was a consistent player. You can just look at his stats for seasons. It's remarkably consistent. I mean, you may go up and down a rebound or 2 here and there, or up and down a point here and there, but it was 17, 18 points a game, 10, 11, 12 rebounds a game for a long period. I mean, there's really something to be said for that. I mean, I think that consistency is a great thing to have, especially in a lesser player, and I mean lesser as in not your number one option. I mean, you want your number one option to be consistent, but it's too hard to be consistently great all the time. It's too hard for anybody to do that night in and night out.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It's kind of weird how we view longevity in basketball. I was kind of thinking about this earlier. You're one of the greatest players ever in MLB history if you're just good for 17 years. In NBA, it's not viewed that way. So I feel like it's kind of weird. Like Cal Ripken Jr., that's like the first one that pops in my head. Like when you talk about like he was a good player. I think he was maybe great for a few years, but then just kind of good, if not okay, for a long time. But he's considered this phenomenal all-time great player because he has this long streak and he can accumulate all these stats. Why don't we view it that way with basketball?
I don't know. I mean, even Hank Aaron kind of falls in that category. He had a couple really great seasons, maybe a few really great seasons, but then he was just remarkably consistent for 20 years.
I would consider him a lot better than Cal Ripken Jr.
I'm not saying he's Cal Ripken Jr. I'm just saying he falls in the category as in
he was extremely consistent.
It's not like he was out there having a bunch of 50 home run seasons, but he is the home run, or he was the home run, however you want to look at it.
He is. Yeah. Barry Bonds ain't no home run champion.
No.
I
But
get what you're saying, though. You're right.
Yeah.
Hank Aaron was maybe not necessarily great for 20 years, but he was just really good for 20 years.
Yeah. But no, you're right. But I also think it's because we don't have per game stats for baseball players. Literally, baseball is the counting game because we count up what your stats look like at the end of your career.
Well, you can sit there and look and say someone, they have 3,000 hits. Yeah, but they have a career batting average of 278. Well, okay, cool. You played 1,400 years.
So let me ask you this. Can you name majority of the 3,000 hit club?
The majority?
Yeah.
Oh, God, no. But I know there's a ton of them.
I can name majority of them, if not all of them.
If I sat here and concentrated, I might be able to name a portion of it.
There's a remarkable number of those guys that hit under 300.
That's my point. Like, that's not that remarkable, but it's considered amazing. Like,
Right.
that's my point. Like, that's what I'm trying to say. It's like Parish is like in the top. I don't remember exactly what Ray said, but he's achieved these certain milestones and hit these marks and has the games played record, correct? Which Cal Ripken is considered this monster for playing all these games. Well, Robert Parish is the Cal Ripken of the NBA, and no one gives a shit. Like I'm literally asking, why don't we treat it the same way? Cal Ripken is thought of as a god. Brett Favre was thought of like this god that never missed games. They're so tough.
I think in football,
you think baseball's more physical than basketball?
No,
Get
but
outta
football
here.
is. I mean that's
that
where the Brett
is.
Favre comes in. It's
I'm
like
talking about Cal
he
Ripken and Brett Favre. Like Cal Ripken, like you stand at a base. You can spend a whole game and not even sprint. Like, get out of here. You go 0 for 3.
Well,
You don't even sprint the whole game.
I'm not trying to make this a baseball podcast episode, but Cal Ripken at the end there was so bad. They just wanted him to keep his streak. They would start him and then take him out of games.
Right.
No, I'm not trying to. You get my point, though.
No, I'm helping you make your point.
Like,
That's what
why
I'm saying.
aren't we giving him the credit that we give Cal Ripken and Brett Favre? Did someone break Brett Favre's record? I don't remember.
I don't think
for
so.
consecutive
Eli was close,
games?
and then Eli got benched.
Philip Rivers was close too, wasn't he? And then he was like 3rd or 4th on the list.
I'm not sure.
Doesn't
I don't
matter.
think so though.
Doesn't matter. But I always thought that was crazy. He's played this insane amount of games. Was an NBA champion, All-Star, All-NBA player. So he was obviously very good. But no one cares about his games record. That is super impressive. But Cal Ripken and Brett Favre, like, I'm not gonna say that's the whole reason they're in the Hall of Fame. But that's like when people bring them up, that's like the first thing they talk about. Cal Ripken, oh, he has a game streak. Oh, Brett Favre, oh, he's the Iron Man. Or, he played all these games. Like, why don't we say that about Robert Parish?
That's true. I mean, because I think we talked about this in another episode. Was on somebody's trivia question. The number 2 guy in all this is AC Green. He played I think he has the most consecutive games played without missing one.
Right.
He's way up there on the games played list. All those things, and I bet there's a lot of people who don't even know who AC Green is. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Probably not.
but I mean, I'm just trying to go along with Wade's point here. Like, but I don't have the answer. I don't know why we look at it differently.
Yeah, it's a good point. I never really thought about it, but you're right, Wade. I mean, we all know Cal Ripken, but until I started doing research for this, I didn't realize that Robert Parish had 1,611 games played, that he played more games than anybody. I mean, I knew Robert Parish, but I didn't realize that about him.
Yeah, I'm going to talk talk shit on myself here, but that's over 3 times more games than Kawhi Leonard played. I mean, that's insane.
Right.
That's insane. Like that's nuts. Like that's a lot of games. Like that's nuts. Like that's a ton of games in a sport where you are constantly jogging, sprinting, pushing, hitting people. Like that's a lot.
We're not supposed to be 7 feet tall.
Yeah.
Right.
Like
That's
7-footers break down.
Well,
Especially
look
their
at how
feet
many-
and their ankles.
Right.
How many
exactly.
big men have had like
He went
Bill Walton,
Tons of them.
who we've brought up in this podcast numerous times, who was going to be an all-time great. You maybe can still consider him that. His entire career was derailed by foot injuries.
Yeah.
As Drunas
Well-
Agoski, I can't say his name right now.
Sam Bowie, Greg Oden.
Sam
Yeah,
Bowie.
yeah.
Yeah, that's the one I was going to say. Because you think about Sam Bowie, he was drafted ahead of MJ. MJ was number 3. Olajuwon, Bowie, and then MJ. I mean, that's a huge what if Bowie hadn't hurt his foot.
Yeah, that was just something that was on my mind. I just thought that was curious. He he gets no love for that, while these other main sport people are just considered these huge icons for these accomplishments. I thought it was curious.
He gets love from me.
There you
Okay,
go.
so let me ask you this. Is it that he gets no love? Or is it just not as much as we think? I guess what I'm saying is if he would have played 15 seasons and not had his Charlotte seasons and his Bulls season, would we look at him differently?
I think if he cuts his career a couple years shorter, I think his career is exactly the same. He still gets the main championships with the Celtics. He's the second or third best player on, however you want to look at it, on one of the greatest dynasties or championship teams in history, top 3 or 4 probably. You know, he has impressive stats. He's, flirts between 15 to 20 points per game, gets you double-digit rebounds, good defender. I feel like when people bring up Robert Parish, it's, he was that really good big man with Larry Bird and Kevin McHale. That's what I hear. I don't hear anything about his longevity usually, or it might be like a joke, like, oh, yeah, he was, like you said earlier, the 12th man on Jordan's first championship or whatever it was. Like, I never hear like what's the word I'm looking for? Someone like, oh, it was so impressive that he played all these games. I've never heard that talked about Robert Parish ever. Just Cal Ripken, Brett Favre. And like you said, Cal Ripken was a joke at the end, but that's what everyone talks about. So I don't know.
I think maybe the one difference between Parrish, Ripken, and Favre is they were talking consecutive games. That's why Ripken hung on at the end, because it was consecutive games. He never missed one.
Yeah.
Parrish missed some along the way. He stuck around for a long time, but it wasn't a consecutive thing. So I think people looked at it a little different. Like, maybe, well, he's just hanging on at the end. Same way with Favre. Favre always started.
Well, I mean, there at the end, he was throwing 22 interceptions a year.
Yeah.
He had more. He was giving the other team just gifts, like just he had his last like 3-4 years. He had that one great year with the Vikings. But other than that, he was dropping 20 interceptions plus to every.
He was the true gunslinger to the end.
Yes. Like, I think that year with the Jets, he had like 22, 23 interceptions. It was something insane.
He ended 3 straight seasons in the playoffs with an interception to end
Wasn't it like the
game.
NFC Championship or divisional round or
Yeah,
something?
one of them, yeah.
It was something insane. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like Cal Ripken and Favre, neither one. Favre had his second to last season, I think, with the Vikings was really good. Other than that, he was throwing tons of interceptions. Ripken wasn't anything.
You know I'm not a Favre fan, but Favre owned every record in the books when he retired.
Also, the negative records.
No, he
like
did.
interceptions.
But I'm saying, if Parrish was Jabbar and was number 1 overall in points and rebounds and assists, but also turnovers, we'd look at him much differently.
That's a good point, actually. I'll give you that. But Cal Ripken, he doesn't own the hits record. He's nowhere close to the home run record. He's not touching the RBI record. He was a defensive liability for half his career. Like, I mean, you were right with Favre. I'll give you that. But do you get my point? Like,
Oh, yeah.
I understand
It's
your
a good
point.
point.
Yeah,
It's
I
a very
agree.
good point.
I just don't have the answer.
it's just, I don't like Cal Ripken Jr.
I can tell.
I'm just like, well, okay, but we can move on. That was just one of my points.
All right, so do we want to give our closing statements on Chief?
Sure, yeah.
Drew, what you got, bud?
Well, when we're looking at center, this is probably one of the best, if not the best position on all of our lists, because there's just so many great ones out there. But with him being good through all of his career, he never really peaked high enough for a couple years to really do much, and he never really got anything else besides championship. He was only 2-time All NBA, and I thought he was a lot better defense, and it didn't really show up at all. Not even all defense. I'm not saying he had to be defensive player of the year, but he didn't make the team. So for all that, I just don't think he's top 50 worthy.
I can go. As you could tell for the last 15 minutes, I think his games played was very impressive. I thought he was really good. I think I hit on this briefly last episode. I had him and Mutombo as my honorable mentions in my centers list. So I don't really have too many bad things to say about Parish. He was a good player for a really long time. I think Drew kind of hit on it briefly. I don't know if he was ever great, but he was definitely a good player. He won championships. He has a couple All-NBAs. I think a decent amount of All-Star appearances, I believe.
I think it was 9.
Yeah, which is pretty impressive. So, I mean, I think at this point with him, Mutombo, and the other guys we talked about at 9 and 10 on our list, I think you're just kind of splitting hairs on what you prefer. So, obviously he didn't make my list, but he was obviously a really good player.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for Parrish. Watched him play a lot of games, and but I think Drew said it, Alex said it, Wade went back to it. He was good at all these things for a long time, but just wasn't great. And I think that's what we're looking for the top 50. That's something extra special. And he did play a long time, but he just didn't quite make my list.
Chief's another one of these guys that I don't look at you funny because he he ended up on your list. It's not like I'm like, the hell are you doing, Ray? I was like, oh, Chief, okay, he showed up on somebody's list. I wouldn't have been surprised if he showed up on 2 or 3 lists. I wouldn't have been like, holy cow. I didn't put him on my list, obviously. If we redid our list right now, I still wouldn't put him on, but like I said, I'm not against him. I listed it off pretty here. He's very good at a lot of things, I just don't think he was great at any of them, which does end up hurting him. And the fact that he was a team player and was able to accept a lesser role may have hurt him statistically, but he's close. He's close. He's close.
All right, I guess it's my turn. Well, at this point, I think everybody knows my theme, which is toughness in a player. And that's what I kind of look for. That's what Robert Parish showed for 21 seasons. His stat line is consistent. He might not have been asked to be the number 1 player on a team, but he could have been if he wouldn't have been traded. So, I mean, he might have been outshined by Bird and McHale and all them. But, I mean, we've seen before he got traded, he could have been his own guy, his own spotlight. So, I mean, Robert Parish, tough, consistent, hell of a player. That's why he's on my top 50.
Fair enough. I don't think you're going to get a ton of argument there for those statements. So then I guess we'll move into trivia as we wrapped up the Chief. Who wants to go first?
I can go.
All right.
I don't remember if we talked about this on the podcast or off air, but I know we all briefly were talking about the 3-point all-time list a little bit ago. We all know 1 through 3. Does everyone know who 4 and 5 is?
Oh, crap. I think it's Kidd and Jason Terry.
Okay, keep going.
Let's see. I would say Reggie and Kidd.
Okay.
What was the question again?
I said we all kind of huddled up, and I think you were in here, but you briefly heard a conversation. We were talking about 1 through 3 all-time 3-pointers list because Curry just passed someone last night, and then we were going to. I asked who was 4 and 5 behind the 3 that we were talking about.
Oh, man. What was it, Reggie and
Yeah, who was 4 and 5? Yeah, make sure I said that right.
You got anything, Drew?
I'm pretty sure one of them was Jason Kidd, but I can't think of the other one.
Yeah, I'll just have to stick with Reggie. I can't think of anybody for 5.
I'll just go with Reggie.
Yeah, another
Jason
name?
Kidd.
No.
No.
Reggie
Kidd.
and Jason Kidd. Yeah.
Well, Reggie's actually 3, not 4 or 5. None of you all got it. It's Kyle Korver and James Harden.
Oh my
And
God.
Is it really?
Number
Korver and Harden on that high?
Number 6 is Vince Carter. Jason Kidd is number 10.
Ouch.
Kyle Korver?
Oh, Vince Carter is number 6. But
Wow.
he's not part of the answer, but I just want to shout that out.
Wow. I sucked at that.
It was Kyle
me
Korver
too.
and James Harden.
I thought Steph passed Reggie to get into 3. I didn't realize it was.
No,
I couldn't think of anyone
Reggie
else.
is 3. He passed.
Okay.
He was 3 and passed Reggie to go into 2.
So who's one?
Yeah, Steph has to pass
Ray
to
Allen.
Ray Allen, so on.
is.
I'll be damned.
All right, who wants to go next?
I'll go. Kind of following our theme here in games played, Robert Parish is number 1 with 1611. Kareem is number 2 in games played. Who's number 3?
Kevin Willis. Yeah, busted out a name on you. Drew probably didn't know who it is.
I know that.
I don't know who Kevin Willis is.
I'm going to go John Stockton.
That's a good one.
I feel like that's a no.
I think I'm going to go crazy.
Sean Kemp.
Again?
No, I'm going to throw Reggie out there. See if Reggie, I think Reggie might have it.
He played a long time.
Drufus.
I'm going to go with Tim Duncan.
Vince Carter.
Oh!
Oh, Wade's
Wade would
favorite
nail
player.
No. 'Cause I thought you were saying who's second. I was like, I know it's Kareem. Then he said that. I was like, oh, no.
Do you know who 4 was?
No, I don't remember now.
All right.
Probably John Stockton.
Kevin Willis.
Just joking.
Tim Duncan.
I'll go. Who holds the NBA record for most missed field goals?
Michael Jordan.
I'm going to go with Kobe.
That's a good one.
I'll go AI.
James Harden.
The answer is Kobe Bryant.
Oh,
go
yeah.
Drew.
How many did he miss?
How many did he miss?
I didn't write it down. I'm
Oh.
sorry. I just wrote down the question and the
Kobe
answer.
didn't care. He'd shoot the ball no matter what.
Yeah, he would.
I mean, really, Kobe and MJ's numbers are super similar, especially their final scoring totals. But MJ shot like
5% better.
5 or 6% better from the field. So
Kobe
yeah.
was a little better 3-point shooter. Just a little, though.
So Ray, Drew.
Okay, I'll go ahead. Who was the all-time NBA leader in assists at the end of the 2001 season?
John Stockton.
I'm trying to think how long he...
2001?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say Stockton.
Yeah, I'll go
with Stockton.
Yeah, Stockton.
All right, John Stockton.
That was
a trick in there.
That
I
was
like,
about
what?
his retirement age, and he's like 6,000 assists ahead of the next guy. So
Well,
it's not like
second is Magic, who only played like 11 years or 12 years, right?
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like
Magic's actually farther down the list than you
he
think.
is now, but
because he
at
cut
that,
his,
at that time
now.
he would have been second.
He
was
Because
second?
It's like Kidd and Nash between them.
Right.
Really? I still think Magic's still like. I thought he was really high. Okay.
Well, he cut his career kind of short there, so
But he still has the highest
So-
per game average, though, correct?
Wait, did you get that?
maybe.
Yeah, I said Stockton.
Did you?
Yeah, I said Stockton.
And you, Uncle Doug?
Everyone said Stockton.
Okay, I wasn't sure. All right, so Drew, it's you, man.
All right. Who was the first person to ever record a 10-steal game?
The first person. That's crazy. And they didn't keep track of steals until 73, I believe.
I'm going to go with the glove, Gary Payton.
Gary Payton.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good one. But you'd feel like it would have happened in the first 20 years before he was there. Maybe, I don't know.
I'm gonna go Isaiah Thomas.
I'm going to go Sidney Moncrief.
Sidney Moncrief's popped up a lot in podcasts.
He's good. He was
Mainly,
really good.
mainly in the
He was
Kawhi
good.
podcast.
It was
Relative
he was good.
defense.
He was fun to watch.
He scored too. It was just defense. He scored.
I think if he would have been on one of those powerhouse teams in the '80s instead of the Bucks, he'd be talked about a lot more.
He took the Bucks to the playoffs a handful
They
of
were
times.
a
Didn't he?
good
Yeah.
playoff team. I'm just saying, like, he wasn't the Celtics or the Lakers, you know.
Anyway, we're gonna have topics of
Yeah,
trivia.
Right, you got an answer.
I'll go with the glove.
It was Jerry West in the first year that the Steelers started getting.
Oh my gosh! I didn't know that.
You know, another good guess probably would have been Frazier because he was known for his fast hands and
Yeah.
stuff. I guess so. Nobody got that one. So
Wow.
that's all of us, right?
Yeah.
All right. So at the end of week 10, the scores are as follows. Not a lot of movement again this week. Ray has 8. Doug and Alex have 15. Wade has 18. And Drew has 19. He has now taken over sole possession of first place. So anyway, that's not important because it's Drew.
Well, I remember in the first episode you said, "Ooh, I'll probably beat everybody."
Well, I mean, we have 62 more episodes.
It's not
so.
over yet.
I know, but I'm at least winning for a couple weeks, so I'll take it.
So anyway, that'll be it for our week. We appreciate your listen. I'm not 100% sure who we have next week. Does anybody know real
Isn't
quick?
it Sean Kemp and somebody? In a couple
No, I
episodes?
think it's Chris Mullins.
Is it Chris Mullins
I
next?
believe so. And then
sorry.
Kemp and Dumars.
Yes, Chris Mullen is our next week, so tune in to hear about us talk about a white guy that can shoot.
Woo.
And Ray will be defending him as well. So again, we thank you for our listen and tune back in. Thank you.